Yes, so my name is Simon Kingham. I am a professor at the University of Canterbury, but I'm also seconded to the Ministry of Transport as their Chief Science Advisor. Anything I say that's not government policy is me speaking as the University of Canterbury. And if I fail to answer a question, it's because I'm speaking with my ministry hat on. The other thing to note is that I had a little university logo and there was a Ministry of Transport one and it disappeared. So I don't know if that's telling me something, a subtle hint, or I don't know. Anyway, I just want to talk about streetscape and community and traffic and walkability. Many of you will know the work of Donald Appleyard back in the 70s. And what he found is there was a relationship between traffic volumes and social interaction. So this is people walking across the street and talking to their neighbors. So the left-hand side is a busy street, the right-hand side is the light street. And the idea is that you have much more social interaction where there's less traffic. What we did the same study in New Zealand, with a student a few years ago, found exactly the same thing. So we did in Christchurch, 2 streets in Christchurch, found exactly the same thing. It's been done in the UK, same thing. So I'm going to talk, the first study I'm going to talk about though is, so that's just kind of context. I want to talk about a study that we did post-earthquake with Karen Banwell, one of my colleagues. And it was looking at what were the features of community that saw those communities that recovered better and faster. What were the features of those? And one of the things that came out from that was this concept of communities that had places that you could bump into each other. And communities at places that when you bump into each other when you're walking, you don't bump into each other. Well, you can when you're in a car, not great though. You can on a bike, not quite so great. But the key thing is that you bump into each other when, here we go, when you're walking and when you've got slow traffic, when you have places to walk to. And so we came up with this, a number of times people actually used the word bumping places and bumping spaces. They actually said these are spaces you bump into each other. This is a really good paper in an excellent journal, peer-reviewed, beautifully laid out. It's a Wellbeing, Space and Society from last year. Karen Banwell and me. She's first. It is not alphabetical order. I'm just making it up now because I actually want you to see the quotes. Basically, the quotes say that they talk about the importance of accidental bumping spaces, places where you accidentally bump into each other. They also talk about the importance of gathering places. So these are places you go to intentionally, but the bumping ones are unintentional. And they're really, really important. And I'm going to show you. So these are the things people found were really important. They talked about how these bumping and gathering spaces are really valuable places for social interactions. They're really important. Seeing each other is really important for local conviviality. Walkable neighborhoods increase the chances of seeing people. And they promote well-being and a sense of belonging. And that urban design is part of it. So you can actually retrofit these. And I'm just going to give you some examples. I'm going to tell you a very quick story about this poor little child who is my son. And he's decided he wants to be LeBron James. Michael Jordan, for those of you who are younger, Steph Curry, for those of you, sorry, older, other way around. Anyway, he decided to do that. So I looked and I thought, where can I put a basketball hoop? That's my street. The garden wasn't big enough. And I thought, where's a really good space for basketball? The street. So I put a basketball hoop up. Technically, I don't know if it's illegal. I don't know. But anyway, I put it up. So there's the basketball hoop. There's the little boy playing on the basketball hoop. And there are lots of his mates playing on the basketball. Admittedly, a slightly staged photo. They all gave permission. That's him. And I was quite hopeful because he actually started playing basketball at school and he's 6'8". I thought, this is a winner. I'm going to make money out of my basketball hoop. But no, he stopped. The good news is that this little chap here actually is really good at basketball. And he played for Canterbury under 15s and they won the national championship last week. And he verbally agreed to give me 1% of any future earnings for use of my basketball hoop. So I'm hopeful I'm on to a winner. Anyone know any of these kids? This is taken from our house. We've got a wee camera thing. And I don't know those kids either. And it looks a bit spooky and kind of, but the point is that I don't know those kids. And they're all playing on the basketball hoop on the way home from school. And so they're getting social interaction. They're getting exercise. Because that is a walkable community and you put a place out to create a bumping space. Also notice that the basketball hoop has been updated because all the kids said they wanted a full-size one. So we had to put that in. I think it's safe. Other places around the world you get this. This is a picture I took in Vancouver of a created bumping space. And I think those people those people look like they've just met and they've just bumped into each other. There are other ones in Christchurch. A friend of mine took his fence down and put a bench in because he wanted people to sit and enjoy his sitting outside his house. A second story I want to mention. This is the same street I live on. It was a normal street. It was then closed to through traffic because someone had to do some repairs to the drains. This is about 4 years ago. And the very first week happened is that someone put a note out and said, let's play cricket on the street. One of the neighbors randomly did that. Everyone thought it was me and it wasn't. I didn't know anything about it. So we played cricket that very first weekend on the street. People said to me, this is crazy. Cars will run people over. What's interesting about cars is they actually don't want to run people over. And if they see kids playing on the street, they slow down. So I've actually got other pictures of the kids moving the game out of the way and the car driving down safely and quietly. The second weekend, it was basketball. People rolled out the basketball hoops and we had big games on the street. And the other thing that happened is that people gathered socially and interacted. So by creating a street, reducing the impact of traffic, slowing traffic volumes down, or reducing traffic volumes and slowing speeds, you actually created a walkable environment where people could have social interaction. So Angela Curl, who's here, and Karen Banwell and I decided we'd do some research to see what impact this had on community. And I just want to point out, I didn't do any of the interviews because I live on the street. So Karen, I think, did most of them. And again, lovely publication. So we got this written up to see what was the impact of this temporary closure of a street to through traffic. It didn't stop anyone getting to their homes. It just meant people couldn't drive through the street. And what we found is that it became a place of recreation. People reported better and increased active travel. So there was more walking and cycling. People actually supported a permanent closure of the street to through traffic. So people said, actually, we like this. And they saw that there were benefits of restricting vehicle access and then that they outweigh the disbenefits. So people said, yes, it did take a bit longer to get to some places, but the benefits of closing it to through traffic outweighed those. And there are examples of this sort of approach. So the most famous is Barcelona, where they have super blocks and they basically close streets to through traffic, slow traffic speeds down, and they create places of social interaction in the middle. This is a before and after shot of one particular junction in Barcelona. That's some better photos of what the sort of things that can happen when you just restrict access. You're not stopping cars driving you're not stopping anyone getting to their homes. You're just deprioritizing and changing the focus of spaces. These are some other places of people socially interacting on streets, creating places. This is a real good example to me of placemaking. And we have got other good examples in Christchurch, already seen, same pictures. But it can be done. And I think, as Sarah said earlier, if you ask people, would you like to go back to what was there before? They'll say no. If you ask people, can I close the street or restrict access? They tend to get a bit narky about it. But the reality is, and this is what Reshaping Streets and the really good work that Nick Potter and others have done, is it's trying to say, let's try some of this stuff, because what happens is people actually don't think it's as bad as they initially think it's going to be. It can even happen in Auckland. I know. It's a miracle, isn't it? So this is Auckland. This is Fort Street in Auckland. So it's possible to do it. And the other thing is, it's not a new thing. This is what used to happen when I was a child. Well, not me, but when older people were children. And if younger people don't know what I'm talking about, just watch, what's it called? Called The Midwife, a really good example. And so what we can do is we can change the function and shape of our streets. This is an example from, I think it's the Netherlands, where very clearly the street is a place for people. You're not restricting access to cars, but you're telling cars very clearly that when they arrive, expect to see people playing and having social interaction. This is an example, another one in the Netherlands, where the sign tells us, this is actually a cycle street, but I think it applies whether it's cycling or walking, but the sign says cars are guests. And so cars are guests on those streets, not the other way around. And I think one of my favorite quotes is Fred Kent, who said, if you plan cities for cars and traffic, you get cars and traffic. If you plan for people and places, you get people and places. And that's my local version of the same thing. You get social interaction if you change the prioritization of what we use our streets for. So I've gone really, really fast because I know Rolly's got a great talk to follow me, and we had a few technical issues, but thank you very much.